Hi, I'm Barbara Rimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. We have a little bit of bicentennial history for you today. On the eve of 1976, the United States was coming out of a pretty tough period. The war in Vietnam, battles over civil rights, the oil embargo, the Watergate hearings. It was just a rough time to be an American. And yet, we had a big celebration coming up. The 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Could this help us come out of our collective funk? There were a lot of components to the bicentennial celebrations. In Exeter, the Bicentennial Commission was organized in 1975 with events that would span over 2 years. There were subcommittees for all sorts of things: parades, concerts, proclamations. Among them was a committee for arts and crafts headed by Kitty Spitzer. One of the proposals that she had was the creation of a town quilt. The idea was pitched to the select board as a quilt that would depict scenes, buildings, and life in Exeter, and it would be worked on by townspeople. It was hoped it would be displayed somewhere in town after completion. But when we went through the commission's records, we couldn't find it mentioned again, which was odd, because just a few years ago, the actual Exeter Town Bicentennial Quilt was donated to the Exeter Historical Society. It's right here. You're looking at it. The donors remembered that they had won it in a raffle, but otherwise didn't know a whole lot about it. But they did know that this was the right place to bring it. And yes, thank you. But we still didn't know much about who worked on it and why it was raffled to the public rather than donated to the town. You see, there were a lot of towns that made quilts for the bicentennial. As we researched local newspapers, we found mentions of similar projects in Rye and Northampton. The Kensington Library made a needlepoint rug, which is pretty fancy, Kensington. Our collections had a scrapbook from the bicentennial. Inside, we found a newspaper clipping, which was undated and unattributed, but it showed our quilt on display behind our Director of Collections, Nancy Merrill. But of course, it still doesn't tell us what we wanted to know: who made it and where did they make it? I have brought up labeling your photos, right? We did eventually find a reference and a photo in the Exeter newsletter. After the initial proposal, the project was picked up by the Women's Alliance of the First Unitarian Society of Exeter. Their records were very sparse. I was hoping we'd find the names of the people who worked on the quilt, but they're not there. The quilt was created during the fall of 1975, and it was raffled at the church's Candy Cane Fair in December. According to Pam Weeks from the New England Quilt Museum, a lot of the town quilts produced during the bicentennial are now in pretty terrible condition because they've been on display for decades, so they're faded, threadbare, but not ours. It's in great shape thanks to the White family who kept it safe all these years. The quilt is done in applique with 18 scenes of Exeter. It's quite a snapshot of the town in 1975. The building we're now in was the public library, and the Historical Society was in a brick building just down the street. The fire department was housed at today's senior center, and the rec department was called the community center. There are 4 churches depicted: St. Michael, the Congregational Church of Exeter, and we're sorry your steeple got cut off, the Phillips Church at Phillips Exeter Academy, and of course the First Unitarian Society. It also has the town's powder house, town hall, and the bandstand. Make no mistake, these quilts are art and not bedding. My favorite part is probably the detail on the alewife swimming up the river. It's just beautiful. What a treasure. For more information about Exeter treasures, check our website at www.exeterhistory.org.